Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. Today's video I'm going to be going over a little bit of a side-by-side review between some ambidextrous lowers, in particular the LMT Mars L and the Sons of Liberty slash Forward Controls Design LRF. I know it's been a few weeks since I had any updates to the channel. I do apologize about that, but I am excited to get a new upload for you guys today. And I do want to mention that in the few weeks since my last video was released, the channel subscribers has grown exponentially. And I just want to take a minute to say that I definitely appreciate all of you guys and gals that have subscribed to the channel. Also, with the extra subscriptions have come extra comments and feedback, and I do really like and enjoy that a lot. So thank you everybody who's followed me so far. Okay, so back to the video. The video today, it's going to be less about specifically looking at or comparing the Mars L to the Sons of Liberty Gunworks FCD lower. And it's going to be more so about the features of them. Anybody who's followed me for a while, or maybe you've already seen the video a couple months back, I did upload a video talking about left-handed enhancements for ARs. You know that obviously the AR was really designed around more right-handed shooters, you know, where the layout of the mag release is to the bolt release, etc. And over the years, various manufacturers have released different enhancements, and then also ultimately was led into ambidextrous receivers themselves. Now, I know there's manufacturers like Stag, and I think Rock River Arms, they made left-handed guns altogether. Though they weren't really, it was more so the upper that was the really left-handed part. I think it was really different about it, where you had left-hand side ejection and left-hand bolts and everything. That was actually my first AR-15. Ended up shying away from it because I didn't, you know, I like being able to upgrade things, and it was just my AR was different from every other AR out there, and I decided that the left-hand specific models weren't for me. So going back to the receiver, I do want to say that I think that it is really widely recognized. You know, there's tons of good or manufacturers out there that claim to have ambidextrous lowers. And I think it's pretty widely accepted there's a difference between what's truly ambidextrous and what's not. And what I mean by that is a gun that is truly, or a lower that is truly ambidextrous, is going to have not only a left-hand side magazine release, but it is also going to have a right-hand side bolt catch. And now, you know, take note that I didn't say bolt release, bolt catch. That is a big difference. You know, for people who are right-handed, you know, it doesn't maybe make a lot of sense to get an ambi lower, with the exception that you actually do have a bolt catch. So as you see here, if I had the upper on here, which I'll show in a minute, once the bolt is locked back, the paddle will be pulled over, and then you push the button and it will drop the bolt. Well, here you also have the ability, and you can see the opposite side bolt catch, or the standard bolt catch, activate. That if you are a right-handed shooter, you can pull the charging handle back, press down on the paddle here, and you'll have the ability to lock the bolt back. That's why it would make sense for right-handed shooters to maybe want to get a an ambidextrous lower. The Mars L does have that. There's others out there that have it as well. I don't have the list, you know, separated between which ones are truly ambi and which ones are not. The Forward Controls Design, it does not have that. What you simply have here is a bolt release. So if you are a right-handed shooter and you want the added benefits of a ambidextrous lower, mainly being having a right-hand bolt catch, the Forward Control Design and again many others out there, they don't have that. This isn't going to be the right choice for you. The advantage of the Sons of Liberty Gunworks slash FCD ambi lower receiver, and I say ambi with air quotes, along with all of the other lower receivers that are set up like this that only have bolt release, the only advantage is that when you insert a magazine, you have the ability to reach up and drop the bolt. Similar to how righties, when operating an AR-15, they can put a magazine in and then hit the bolt release and it drops. So that is the main difference between what is a truly ambidextrous lower, such as the LMT Mars L, and others that are like it, in comparison to the Forward Control Design and others like it. So now to talk about the specific advantages for left-handed shooters. So starting with the bolt release and bolt catch, or let's just say bolt release. So if you're a lefty, you're not really going to care about the bolt catch. We'll say, there's a difference in design along with spacing on them. I am going to go ahead and use magazines to kind of show a feel. As you see, these are both unloaded magazines. But you'll notice that on the LMT Mars L, here you can see the standard bolt catch, and you see the difference in geometry between them. So, like I mentioned, if you're a right-handed shooter, you go and empty a magazine, you can just reach straight up, almost straight up, hit the bolt catch, and then your bolt release, and then you're back in the business. If you're a left-handed shooter and you're using the Mars L, when you see the offset between them, the bolt release, due to the design of the Mars L, sits quite a few, ways back, further aft than on the right-handed side control. So you empty a mag or insert a magazine, you got to reach up and over to go hit the bolt catch. Something that we just accept as left-handed shooters because we are just happy to have a bolt catch on the right-hand side. Whereas if you look at the forward control design, it's not quite as far back. Now, granted, I do have the forward control design rearward bias. I think it's the ABCR, but you can still see where the center of the paddle is about on this side here. So if you look at where the button is here for the bolt release compared to the center of the standard size, it's a lot closer. So when you go to empty a magazine or insert a magazine, when the reach to go release the bolt onto a fresh mag is not quite as far. We'll say that, between the two of them, as you can see, the profile of the button for the bolt release on the FCD lower, it's pretty low profile, whereas with the bolt release on the Mars L, it is definitely a lot easier to engage. It sticks out further. It's a bit of a bigger target to go hit. There isn't quite as much of that accessibility on the FCD, though I will say, at least in a little bit, and I just put this lower together last night, the bit that I've been testing it out in my house, I don't seem to have a problem with that. Once I run it on the range a little bit, I'll see if I ever, tend to fumble with this. But I could see, especially if you had on like a glove, where that may be a little bit, or I should say not as easy. I don't want to say challenge to drop the bolt in comparison to the Mars L. Moving on to the mag release between the two. First, let's talk about the way that they activate. So, depending on the lower that you have, some are a lever and some are a button. And what I mean by that is, depending on their design, as you see here on the Mars L, the way that the left-hand mag release is designed, is that it is a paddle here, and there's an arm that goes underneath of the standard magazine release, that when you push the button, it pushes against the mag release, and that's how it activates it. And as you see, activates the button on the left hand side. So it's more of a push. With the forward control design, this is the same mag release that they use as their standard one that you could add to any AR. This is a design that is it pivots off of the lower in order to pull the mag release out. See, both sides get activated. As you see, it's on the outside of the mag release, whereas the Mars L is underneath the mag release. So it pulls it out versus pushing it out like the Mars L. That may make a difference to some people. I'm not smart enough to comment on whether I think what is a smarter, better, stronger design. All I care about is, does it work when I need it to work? So that's something that's a little bit different between the two. Obviously, like I mentioned, this mag release, the ambidextrous mag release from FCD, you can add to any AR, as I highlighted in my previous video, whereas the design that's for the Mars L, it's very specific. As you see, the forging is there's a fence that's built up underneath it. There's cuts in the receiver. You couldn't put this mag release on any other AR except for the LMT Mars L. So between the differences of their design, the other thing that taken into consideration is the placement of the mag release. So again, with the Mars L, as you see here, their magazine release by design is placed pretty much directly in front of the trigger guard, a little bit above it, whereas the forward control design along with others out there. Off the top of my head, I can think of, Troy has an ambidextrous mag release that's like this. I know Knight's Armament has one, and even the American Defense Manufacturing, their magazine release is placed in a similar spot. So the difference between that comes to how it feels. How naturally does it feel? And I will say that with the Mars L, all you got to simply do, you don't even have to adjust your grip, is take your finger off the trigger, reach forward, press the mag release, and it drops the magazine out. Whereas the design, like the forward control design, you have to kind of shift your grip up in order to drop that magazine. Not a huge deal. It's just not as naturally intuitive to just reach forward out of the trigger guard and press the magazine release as it is on the Mars L. So something to take into consideration if you're looking for ambidextrous lowers or even just ambidextrous mag releases just themselves. So which one's better between the two of them? Well, that's going to be, that's up to you. I find either one of them work well. Obviously, that feels a little bit more natural, but I'm going to talk about a little bit about what's easier to activate. So while the LMT Mars L, it feels more intuitive and more natural, you see the paddle on here. It's a little bit smaller paddle than what you have on the forward control design, and it does have this fence that's built up around it to prevent accidental magazine releases. So switching over to this 20 rounder, just because it's easier to manipulate between my desk and the camera. As you see, press the button, falls right out, no problem. But I will say that even though the forward control design, you do have to change your grip a little bit, you do have to break it a little bit, it is a lot easier to drop that magazine release. I do feel that maybe due to the larger paddle on there, or maybe even by the design of the ambi control, it is easier to drop a mag. And I would also probably, what contributes to that is the lack of fence that is around this in comparison to the very heavy fence and the smaller paddle, which I don't have very large fingers, and I could especially see if I had gloves on. That could present a challenge to it. If I wanted to, I guess you really have to put a little bit more concentration on making sure you're engaging the left side magazine release with the Mars L than you do with the forward control design. I will say though that there is a bit of a fence that is built up here on the forward control design to help prevent with accidental magazine ejections. If it bumps up against something, you have less chance that it is going to accidentally shoot on you when you don't want it. And for that, I will use this lower here, which is it's a standard right hand lower. I do have the FCD mag release on here, and with this on a standard AR, you do not have any type of fence whatsoever, so there is a little bit more risk that you are going to accidentally eject a magazine. And I will say there has been a couple times that I have accidentally bumped this with my finger, just with trigger discipline and not keeping my finger on the trigger, where I've accidentally hit that and it's dropped a magazine when I didn't want to, due to a lack of fence around this. And again, it's few and far between, but just something to keep into consideration. So depending on your application, depending on your preference, that may be a good thing or maybe a bad thing, both pros and cons. Or you may consider one to be a pro and the other one a con, or vice versa, when choosing between these two ambi lowers and the way that they have their left-hand magazine release. Diving a little bit more into the bolt catch / bolt release, starting off with the LMT Mars L. You see I do have the bolt lock back, empty magazine here. For us lefties, finally being able to insert a fresh magazine, reach up, and drop the bolt on it is a huge advantage. And like I mentioned before, you do, besides having the ability to drop the bolt, you have the ability to lock it back. Let me go ahead and illustrate that a little bit more with the magazine out of there. So specifically, if you're a right-handed shooter, whereas before you didn't have a way on the right side of the gun to lock the bolt back, now you can pull the bolt back, reach down, activate the bolt catch. That is one of the big advantages and definitions of what makes the Mars L a true ambi lower. Again, not only having dual side magazine releases, dual side bolt releases, but also having the bolt catch. Didn't think about this before, but also as a right-handed shooter, while you may not need it, because as you enter or put in a fresh magazine and you can release the bolt, you do also have the option of hitting it with the left hand, kind of similar to how we lefties over the years shooting ARs have gotten used to kind of just reaching up, breaking our grip, and activating the bolt release on a fresh magazine with standard ARs. Well, so as a right-handed shooter, if you get an ambi lower, that is one of the advantages for you as well. And then for the Sons of Liberty Gunworks FCD lower, again, empty fresh magazine, reach up, you hit the bolt release only, drops the bolt, but with zero provisions to be able to lock the bolt back on the right side like you can with the Mars L. So in this case, you would have to reach over for a lefty, activate, which makes it a lot easier with an aftermarket mag catch, such as one by forward control design. The Geisley Maritime is another good one, where it has an enlarged paddle right here where you can just lock that down when activating or trying to lock back your bolt, though that does not help any of you right-handed shooters out there. All right, so that wraps up this video. Hopefully it can help some of you guys out there that are in the market for an ambidextrous lower, help give you some insight and some things to look for. Definitely pay attention to what's true ambi, what's not true ambi. And while there is many different manufacturers out there that are making various true ambi and somewhat ambi designs, there are differences in between them. So based on the points that I had brought up here, again, if that helps you make a better decision or give you some insight into which one is going to be the right choice for you, hope the video definitely helped out. So again, appreciate all of the new subscribers that I've gotten. Appreciate all of the feedback that I've gotten. You guys are what makes the channel what it is. So thank you very much. Have a good one.